Hello, everyone. Welcome to our panel. We will start in just a few minutes. We want to make sure everyone has an opportunity to join the link. So thank you so much for being here. My name is Courtney. I am an admission officer at Occidental, and I am joined by several current students. So they will be here to answer your questions about clubs and organizations on campus. Additionally, we have several admission officers working behind the scenes to make sure that we can not only answer your questions live, but really answer as many of your questions as possible. I will be starting the session with a quick overview of the kinds of clubs and organizations that you would find at Oxy. And then I will invite my students to join us on screen, and they will introduce themselves and talk a little bit about their Oxy experiences. And then we will go ahead and open it up for Q&A from all of you. So when it is your turn to ask questions, or if you have questions at any point throughout, you can use the Zoom Q&A feature. So do look for that in your Zoom screen. We will share as many of the questions with the student panelists as we can. There may not be time to answer everything, so do stay connected with us. You're always welcome to reach out to us with your questions, especially if we aren't able to get to it today. We're also going to be recording today's session, so we will be sending you the link for this, and we'll be posting it on the admission website. So you're welcome to watch it later if there's anything you want to hear more about. Now, for those of you just joining us, my name is Courtney Strickland Bergen. I am the Senior Associate Dean of Admission here at Oxy. I'm also an Oxy graduate from the class of 2003. I returned to Oxy a few years ago and have really loved being part of the admission team. I would say especially because the Oxy community really inspires me as much as it did when I was a student here. So as I mentioned, in a few minutes, we'll be joined by a few current students to answer your questions. But first, I hope you'll allow me to provide a brief overview of the clubs and the organizations at Oxy. Oxy students are really as engaged in campus life and committed to building community. And with such a diverse student body, they're really learning from each other inside and out of the classroom. Oxy has over 100 clubs and organizations. There are clubs dedicated to outdoor activities such as hiking and skiing, or to community service or tutoring or public health, or social events such as the Popsicle or Folk Dance Club. There are also academic and professional development organizations like the Women in Economics Club or the Pre-Law Society, for example. The foodies of Oxy Club can introduce you to your favorite LA restaurant, or Oxy Surf Club can teach you to surf. The range of clubs, I think, really allows you to continue doing the things you loved before coming to Oxy and to find new things to try once you were here. 15% of Oxy students are involved in Greek life, and we have both national and local fraternities and sororities. For example, we have a gender-neutral fraternity and we have a chemistry fraternity. So as a result, being part of Greek organizations does feel a little different at Oxy than it does at other schools. So rather than just being the single group of people that a student lives with or spends time with, instead Greek life really becomes just one factor of a student's community. So it's just as common that a student could be a member of a sorority, but also part of the soccer team or the yearbook staff or so much more. Oxy also has a really dynamic club and intramural sports program. We have women's and men's rugby and ultimate frisbee teams, as well as a dance team. There are also intramural sports, including basketball and soccer and volleyball, and even sometimes flag football. Approximately 20% of Oxy students participate in club or intramural sports. Additionally, Oxy offers wellness programs for credit, such as spin and Zumba and yoga. So whether or not you participate in a varsity or club team, all students have access to the athletic facilities at Oxy, which includes a beautiful track, a 15-lane swimming pool, tennis and basketball, soccer, baseball, and softball fields, and a fitness center. And there's even a well-known disc golf course that will take you around the campus. Please note, if you are interested in learning about varsity sports, that's not actually something we'll be discussing today. We did hold another session about varsity athletics for anyone interested in our Division III varsity teams, and that video is already available on our website, so you're welcome to check that out if that's an area you'd like to hear more about. Oxy students are really leaders on campus. We have an incredibly engaged student government, so we call it the Associated Students of Occidental College. And the branches of ASOC include the Senate, the Diversity and Equity Board, the Renewable Energy and Sustainability Fund, and Honor Board. ASOC also funds various student services, including Oxy's Bike Share and Bengal Bus, which are our student-run transportation options on campus. Oxy's TV station, Oxy's radio station, K-Oxy, the Oxy Yearbook, the Occidental, our campus newspaper, Oxy Design Service, which provides graphic art support for student organizations, Oxy Programming Board, which hosts major campus events and concerts, Oxy's Organic Garden, which also includes chickens, and the Student Activities Center. Some of Oxy's most loved traditions are a result of our really engaged community. This picture is of the largest annual program at Oxy called Dance Production. This is a student choreographed dance recital with every kind of dance form. So hip hop, contemporary, and also swing, Bollywood, Irish step dancing, ballroom, ballet, and so much more. And in true Oxy style, any student can participate in dance production, whether they have dance experience or not. And they're usually between 200 and 300 participants. Another annual event is Apollo Night, which is a talent show organized by the Black Student Alliance. And students can participate in a range of mediums and art forms, including music and dance and spoken word. And at the end of the show, each year, the audience votes for winners to receive cash prizes. My personal favorite tradition is when the Office of Religious and Spiritual Life hosts a Thanksgiving meal each November that is open to students and staff and faculty. And they have a full feast of all the traditional dishes. But more importantly, a representative from each student religious organization comes to the meal and speaks about the tradition of gratitude within their spiritual discipline, which gives all of us an opportunity to learn more about our community while literally breaking bread together. Now I'm going to invite my fellow panelists to join me on screen. As I mentioned, I'm joined by a few current students who are going to be able to give you some personal experiences about kind of what they're involved in at Oxy, how they ended up at Oxy, and be here to answer your questions. So let's start by having them introduce themselves. Bergen, can you introduce yourself to everybody?
Sure. So I'm Bergen. I am a senior, originally from Wisconsin. I am a critical theory, social justice major, urban environmental policy minor. It sounds so liberal artsy. I swear it's cool. I'm also the president of Oxy 350, which is a sustainability club on campus, and I'm involved in dance production and active minds, and I'm a tour guide.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And Luca, how about you?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name's Luca. I use he, him pronouns. I'm from Alameda, California in the Bay Area. I'm a senior economics major math minor. In terms of clubs I'm in around campus, I'm the president of our Economic Student Association. I'm also one of the captains of our men's ultimate frisbee team, which is one of our club sports. In addition, I've also been involved in Dance Pro. I'm a member of Zeta Tau Zeta, which is our gender neutral Greek org. And I've also got the chance to deal with clubs from the administrative side, working in our SLICE office, which is our Office of Student Leadership, Involvement, and Community Engagement as a programming coordinator, and sitting as the student representative on CEAC, which is our Campus Events Advisory Committee.
And Karina?
Hi, everybody. I'm Karina. I am a senior psychology major from LA. I am the social chair of Alpha Lambda Phi Alpha, a local sorority we have at Oxy. I am also the founder of a new club on campus called Bulking Baddies. We are a space for women and non-binary folks to come exercise and feel good about themselves. I'm also a member of the Multicultural Club. I'm the event coordinator for that. And then I'm also a member of the club Beauty Beyond Color that just celebrates women of color. I'm also a senior fellow for Oxy, and I interview prospective students. Yeah, that's a very long list of things to do. Thank you.
So many things, amazing things, all of you. And you're all seniors. You've all been at Oxy for a while. And I think that is well represented in the kinds of things you've been involved with, because you've had so much time to really invest in that. But maybe before we dive into your different experiences, let's backtrack 4 years to just when you were applying to colleges and what even led you to Oxy in the first place. And maybe if you can quickly try to summarize, why did you ultimately end up choosing and attending Oxy? And so maybe we'll go backwards and start with you, Karina.
Yeah, for sure. So I have family who have attended Oxy, and my mom also works here. So when I was younger, I was like, I'm going to Oxy, I'm going to Oxy. And as I got older, I wanted to start my own legacy and go somewhere new. But the more I kept coming back to Oxy or bring my mom lunch or just touring, it felt like home. And I couldn't deny that any longer. And then I got in and I was like, yep, this is the school for me. So I've not regretted my decision.
Oh, and you've just really been making the most of it. So So glad you made that choice and could continue that legacy. Bergen, you came from not nearby, and definitely maybe had to find Oxy with a little more effort on your part. How was that process for you?
Okay, I always say this on my tours and I hope it doesn't sound bad. The reason I started looking at Oxy was as a joke, because my brother went to school on the East Coast, and so I told him I was going to go as far away from him as possible. So I was exclusively looking at schools in California, which was a joke. But then I came out to California, I think my junior year of high school. Toured a bunch of schools. It became very clear to me very quickly that I wanted a small liberal arts school. That's just like how I learn better. I much prefer like small class sizes. I prefer to know my professors and know my classmates and things like that. But once you start looking at small liberal arts schools, they can kind of like blend together in your mind. Like a lot of them offer a lot of the same things and are like academically competitive. So I was like, what stands out, and the thing that really stood out to me the most about Oxy was like the location, not just being in Southern California, but also its location in the sense of like, it's a really small school, but it's also in a really big city, which is pretty rare for like a small liberal arts school. And I liked that we kind of get to have like the city at our fingertips, and like we actually get to go into the city and like utilize the city for like classes, for social things, for like internships and jobs. Like they really take advantage of the city, and I think that's really unique. So that was like the number one thing that stood out to me.
Well, again, great choice. Lucky us that you came here. And I think whatever the reason, every reason for finding Oxy is a good reason. And Luca, what about you?
I'll give an abridged version of what I say on my tours. I think the reason I chose Oxy, first and foremost, was I came here, took a tour, all that stuff, but I really, really loved the campus climate. It felt like folks were like waving to each other, just saying hi, and it felt like everyone was in each other's ears and everything like that, and it just seemed very, very friendly. I didn't believe it on my tour. I thought it might have been a facade, something created. So I wanted to go out and check it myself. And immediately after my tour, I went out onto the quad and just started asking people like what they did around campus, like what they were interested in, those sorts of things. And everyone had an answer that could go on forever about something they loved doing. And not only that, but they wanted to share everything with me. I still have a notes app in my phone that's like, it's long, it's substantial. And it's all of these people and their names and like email addresses or phone numbers for everybody who was like, yeah, when you get to campus, if you want to join the yoga club, hit me up type of things. And that was part of the reason I came to Oxy, because I'm a busybody, and it just seemed like everybody here just genuinely cared for each other and was excited to be doing a lot of things.
I was gonna say, Luca, I feel like that's exactly how I would describe you. So like clearly you saw yourself in the Oxy community, and then you came and became part of it. So let's now dive into a little more. You each like just gave this incredible array of things that you've been involved with and I'm excited about. And so maybe Luca, starting with you, like you have a big role in the Ultimate Frisbee team. That's a really big time commitment, but you also are part of all these other really big time commitments. So I think my question, I'd love for you to describe for everyone just a little bit what the club sport culture is like on campus, but then maybe try to explain how you fit that in with everything else that you do and kind of make time for all of it.
I'd say the club sport culture overall, for context, I came from a very competitive soccer culture in high school. I played premier flighted soccer in high school, and when I got to Oxy, I was like, wow, that's really not what I want to do with my time. So I didn't end up doing varsity athletics. But Frisbee kind of fit the niche of exactly kind of what I wanted in it. First of all, it was a sport that I explored growing up in the Bay and everything like that too. But coming into college, it was just kind of like very, very much so more laid back and very student driven in terms of like how much we were playing and stuff like that. And there is a lot of formal practices. We're still super competitive. Statistic I love to throw out there is when we got shut down for the pandemic, we were ranked #2 among D3 schools across the country for Frisbee. I don't know if we deserved it.
But yes, we did. Yes, we absolutely did.
But it's a fun stat I love to throw out there. So we're extremely competitive, but a lot of it is based on the owners of the students. Like we have 2 formal practices a week, but beyond that, on Wednesdays, Courtney mentioned earlier, we have an 18-hole Frisbee golf course that's kind of set up around campus. We're like hitting light poles and signs. Play that on Wednesdays. On Fridays, we do mixed pickup with the women's team on upper campus. On Saturdays, we have a captain's practice. So realistically, I'm playing Frisbee like 5 or 6 days a week still, despite the fact that I'm not a varsity athlete. And it's really because the students are driving it. But there are people on the team who only come to like, 1 practice a month and then come to tournaments and take pictures instead of playing. And they're still just as much a part of this community and the team as I am. So it really feels like that's the way a lot of activities work on Oxy, where you're going to get more out of it the more you put into it, but you can engage with any activity to any level you want to, which is another part of the reason that I think like so many people are involved in so many things.
I think so. I think that's also, yeah, really good advice for students who, like, as they think about, well, what would I do, is, yeah, find all the different things and then find the levels. Like, not every event has to have 5 days to be part of it a week, but you can figure that out. I think, Bergen, you could certainly also talk about balancing time as far as being part of dance production, and it's an immense year-long time commitment, but then also kind of leading a club and being involved in things outside of that. So why don't you try to, first of all, describe dance production for everyone, since I just gave a very short version of that. And why did you decide to get involved in that and the other things you've been doing?
I would love to. It's like my favorite pastime to talk about Dance Pro. Okay, so I came in, so kind of actually similar to Luca. I danced competitively in high school. It was like a constant thing, as anyone knows who did like a varsity sport in high school. It's like your whole life. And so I knew I wanted to keep dancing. I had done it for my whole life, like since I was 4 years old. And so I knew I wanted to continue doing it, but I really did not want it to take over my life the way it did in high school. That was just not my vibe in college. So I was looking for opportunities to like get involved in dance, but not have it be like a huge time commitment. And I think like similar to what you're just saying, like there's so many dance opportunities that you can make dance your whole life here if you like want to, but you also can like make it really chill and do it like once a week, once a month, like whenever you want. So Dance Pro is the one that stood out to me the most because I liked that it was student choreographed, and I liked that it was like one practice a week, but we still had a performance, because for me, performing is like the most fun part of dancing. And so I was like low key, like not a huge time commitment. So basically it's all student choreographed, and you can choreograph for like any style that you want, really. Like there's typically a few contemporary dances, some hip hop dances, some more jazzy. There's also like, you know, last year there was like a Broadway dance, like there was like a Marvel dance, like you can literally choreograph for whatever you want. And anybody's like open to do that as well. And then if you're not interested in being a choreographer, but you want to dance, you can like look at a little snippet of everyone's dances, like 30 seconds or something, and then you can choose what ones you want to be involved in. You can be involved in one, you could be in, I think, up to 3 maybe. And then you just have like one practice a week for every dance that you're in. And then there's one weekend of shows, as Courtney already said. It's literally the best weekend on campus. Like I can't even, it was so fun because basically I say, if you're not in Dance Pro at Oxy, you will be at the show that weekend. Like there's not going to be something else going on because it's the big thing. So it's really cool because when you're performing, it's like, all your friends are in the audience, your professors like will come, faculty comes, like I think the people in admissions come every year. And like my parents are flying out for it, like it's a whole event. So I think it's the coolest thing that happens at Oxy. So anyways, I'm like getting way off track just talking about Dance Pro. I love it. It's so fun. Highly recommend, even if you're not a dancer. The other cool thing about Dance Pro is that it's people like me who have danced their whole lives, but it's also people who have literally never danced before. And there's no like requirement or prereq for that. So it's a really cool like mix of people like learning how to dance and learning these new choreography and stuff like that. So yeah, that's why I got involved in Dance Pro. No regrets. Definitely glad I did that. The other things I'm involved in were also just things that I kind of came in looking for. I kind of accidentally became the president of a club. I didn't think that was going to happen. But the first like meeting I went to as a freshman, the seniors were like, hey, we don't want to do this anymore. Does anyone want to? So I just raised my hand. They were like, okay. So that's kind of how that happened. Again, very glad that it did. And then, yeah, with like Active Minds, I was just like, looking for a way to get involved in like mental health and things like that on campus. And that's definitely like the most prevalent club in that sphere. So hopefully that answered your question. That was like super rambling.
So yes, I think it did. It definitely spreaded the joy that we wanted to spread. And Karina, I was going to ask just about joining a sorority. Is that something you expected you would do in college? Like, how did that fit into kind of the different opportunities that you experienced, and what has it been like so far?
Yeah, so yes and no. I went to an all-girls Catholic school for high school, and I really loved that female community. So that's definitely something I was looking for as a college student. And then I joined and kind of went through the whole process, and as I continued to be a part of it, I found different interests, and I started becoming involved in like NPP and different tutoring opportunities. And oh, my dog is here, sorry. But as a BIPOC woman in a sorority setting, I think there have definitely been challenges because it's a white space, and even though I'm mixed, like I don't present white. So sometimes there is some tokenization within the organization, but I think we're also taking a lot of steps to move past that and to celebrate everybody, not just the POC within the organization. So I'm very lucky to be part of it. I'm actually in the house right now. I live here. So they have provided me with a safe space to live and a family, whether we want to say sisters or siblings or whatever it's called. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I just really appreciate you all kind of just sharing the truth behind your perspectives. And I want to be able to be as transparent as we can for everyone who's here. So as you're hearing them talk, like just a reminder, use the Q&A box, let us know what else you want to know. I'm going to ask a couple more questions and then we're going to really turn it to everyone who's joining us on Zoom. So maybe for everybody, how does what you're involved in at Oxy compare to what you were doing before? Like Luca and Bergen, you were both dancing, or not both dancing, but you were both doing the Frisbee and the dance and the sports before. And so maybe you knew you were looking for that, but like maybe Karina, to start with you, what was your activities like before coming to Oxy, and does Oxy seem similar or different?
Yeah, so I used to work at a daycare, and I still currently work in a daycare. I work in childcare. So I was definitely looking for that connection on campus, and I get that through NPP and Upward Bound, and even some of the class opportunities and education classes. I'm able to
tell everyone, NPP is our neighborhood partnership program.
Yes, and then Upward Bound is another program that has tours and just programs for low-income families and just low-income students, and we show them what a college life can look like. And these programs are connected to other schools as well. So sometimes I go to UCLA or UC Riverside, and Oxy's on that list as well. So I really love connecting with those younger students and showing them, hey, like there's another option for college, not just a big state university. Yes, I think that is a question.
Great. And Luca, what about you? Anything else to add kind of to the differences between what you're involved with in high school and now that you're at Oxy?
I'd say like the biggest thing is I didn't have to sacrifice anything. Like, I think a lot of my fears in high school was like, I know I'm going to be getting more involved in like my academics and stuff like that. What am I going to be able to keep? And realistically, I was surprised that the answer was everything. Like I did sports in high school. I sang in high school in choir. I'm in Glee Club now. I've been in the musical here on campus. Sarah, I saw your question. We'll talk about it later. But I think it's really interesting how my interests have evolved, like through my academics and stuff like that, and how I've been able to make that a part of my extracurriculars as well. But it really has just been, it doesn't feel like there's anything that's kind of been off limits because of what I'm choosing to do in on campus. Like the only constraint is my time rather than anything else. Like literally nothing else gets in my way. But between that, like the only thing that's changed is I've developed such strong academic interests from my places, like with my professors and stuff like that, that the only really real thing that changed in my activities was I wanted to set up more spaces to interact with my peers in an academic setting, like outside of the classroom, which I've gotten a lot of through the Economic Students Association and stuff like that. But beyond that, it's just been like a more dominance about like just really feeling like I'm connected more with my community than I did in high school. And really just like that sense of you're living in the same space, like walking across the quad, you're going to run into people you know, and you're going to be able to say hi, and you're going to be able to like set up community and set up organizations.
It's true.
So that has been the main difference.
Yeah, it's such a difference from high school where you're all going to different places at the end of the day, whereas all of a sudden here the community keeps going. And I think that really contributes to all of these different areas. Now, Bergen, what about you? Any other differences between what you were involved in before coming to Oxy and now that you're here?
Yeah, I will kind of add to what Luca was saying. I'm actually like way more involved in college than I was in high school. I was involved in a few things, but like I said, I dance really took over my life. And I also was like one of those students that thought I had to take AP for every class, like just ridiculous. But anyways, I don't need to look back on that. I'm way more involved in college because for a few reasons. One, I think that actually Oxy professors really want us to be involved on campus. Like they try to schedule classes. They're very like rigorous, like my classes are super hard, but they really want us to be involved. And so they try to schedule classes in a way that you can be involved. For example, like they try not to make sure you don't have too much schoolwork to do on the weekends, because they know that a lot of clubs and things will like meet on weekends. And they're usually like really good about, they'll work with people if they have like commitments. They can always do like extended deadlines and things like that. And so they want me to be involved. So that made me want to be involved really. And the other thing is just being around other students. Like, I don't know what I would do if I wasn't involved, because everyone around me is so involved. So it's like, I would just be sitting alone at home if I wasn't doing things. Just because even though my roommates aren't in like necessarily the same things as me, like we're all doing a lot. And that like makes me want to do a lot also. And then the last thing is that Oxy students are just like super passionate about things. Not always the same things, but there's like a lot of overlap, but we're just very passionate in general. And so I think that that really like contributes to this culture of like getting involved because you actually want to and like you care about it. Like, I don't think any of us are really doing it like to pad our resumes or anything. Like, it's actually things that we care about being involved in and like want to continue being involved in. And so I think you really get that vibe. And again, it just like makes you want to be involved.
Absolutely. Okay, so I have more questions for you, but I want to pause and answer some that have come in. And yes, Luca, let's start with Sarah's question about theater. And since you have participated in theater, why don't you talk about like how to be involved in theater when you're not a theater major?
So the story I love to tell for this one is I have auditioned for one show on campus so far, and I am not a theater major, and I have been in three. So, so it's very much so not my choice, but I've kind of got roped into it a little bit.
Here's another part for you, Luca. Let's go.
They're small. But I think one thing that I really fell into, I've been singing since I was tiny. But my senior year of high school, we changed our choir directors. Our new choir director sucked, and a couple of my friends grabbed me and said, "Hey, look, you're going to do musicals now," and I fell in love with it. So I was just kind of discovering my love for musicals as I got into college. And we were fortunately enough, we did a musical my first semester on campus. We did Urinetown. I played Officer Barrel for anyone who knows the show. And it was just such a great experience. It was a lot of time. It was a long commitment. We had like 4-hour rehearsals 5 days a week. It's no joke. But we were really diving a lot deeper into the script than we did in like high school productions, even though it was a kind of a gimmicky show. We were taking it serious. We were doing a lot with movement and a lot of movement exercises to kind of get us familiar with the space and everything. And it really was academic to a degree that I'd never experienced before in high school. But beyond that, even the fact that though I'm an econ major math minor, I was able to participate in this academic theater space and really create some amazing art. And I've never been precluded from it. I think like of our leads, our two main leads were both theater majors, but our three supporting leads were an econ major, a UEP major, and a music major. So like beyond that, you can really get involved in the productions. That doesn't mean that theater majors aren't given like, preferential treatment. They're the ones who are learning the things. They're the ones who are really going to apply it to their lives. So of course they are really like put on a pedestal in terms of those productions and stuff like that, but it's plenty of ways to get involved. And we always also do ensemble heavy shows. So if you are interested in doing theater, it will be accessible to you and it will be available. And it just creates like such strong like communities and environments and stuff like that. And then after that, I now live in the Zeta house. I live with theater kids and have for 3 years now, because that's kind of how they work. Which has been a blast, but over Zoom, we were doing a lot of our art online. And one of my friends, Mint, who was in the house with me, was in 2 of the shows. And in one of the shows, they needed shadowy figure in the background when they were doing like a horror scene. And they were like, "Oh, Luca lives with Mint. Make Luca be shadowy figure in the background." So I got into that one. And then we have like the New Play Festival every year where people write their own productions. And Ian, one of my best friends who also lives down the hall, wrote something and he was like, "Hey, you're going to play this frat boy." And I said, "Okay." So at some point you just kind of get roped into the same things because people know you and they know what you can do and they also know what you're interested in. And I think that's universal. That doesn't necessarily apply to theater, but it applies universally.
I was just going to say, yeah, you really see that in kind of whatever area it is. Like as everyone gets to know each other, there's a lot of like natural, like, "Oh, like you should do this and come on over and let's be part of this together." Now, Karina, you mentioned being part of some like service organizations and also just kind of leading and being a mentor. Can you talk about how you're able to connect with the community through those organizations and clubs?
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the ways that I one of the ways that I connect with the students is being from LA, and having those similar experiences and talking about like where we're from and like growing up in such similar areas, but then also having such differences. That and then I also help run a nonprofit called Leg Up LA, and we do community work for our community, and we help out the mostly unhoused folks of LA and bring them supplies and food and just water. So that's another way that I'm very involved in the community. It's definitely a community organization for the community by the community. So I'm very happy to be a part of it.
And Bergen, your work around the climate change organization and Active Minds are both community facing in terms of like the Oxy community, but then also the greater community. So how would you specifically say that you interact with like maybe the community outside of campus when there are opportunities for that?
Yeah, so I have a couple examples of this. Probably my favorite thing that we did as a club was we were able to, actually as a result of one of my classes, I took a class called Food and the Environment. It's in the UEP department. And we were able to like visit all these nonprofits that worked on like food justice. And I was able to get connected with a man that runs a food justice nonprofit called Hunger Action LA. And I got to interview him and like we stayed in touch. He's very cool. And then I asked him like, you know, do you ever need any volunteers? Like I run this club on campus. I'd be happy to like get some volunteers for you. And we were able to kind of set up this partnership where this was pre-pandemic, pre-COVID. They had this program where they took blind and low vision people grocery shopping at local farmers markets on the weekends. And they needed like volunteers to come and help with that program. So we were able to kind of like bring our club into that existing program with the nonprofit. That was really cool. I was like, that was probably my favorite thing that we did, just because it was really cool to like get involved in the, as you said, like the community outside of campus and just like feel like what we were doing was actually making a difference, like we could see it making a difference. And it was just cool to like be able to build these partnerships with people that have no relation to Oxy other than they just knew me. And so that was just really fun. We also do things that are like more global and stuff. We do try to focus on more like local things, but for example, we brought a group of students to the global climate strike, which again was pre-COVID. I can't remember what it was, like February or something. I don't know. No time before COVID exists. Like
Right then. Yeah, right then. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, sometime before COVID, we were able to bring everybody, not everybody, a huge group of people to the global climate strike, which was downtown LA. And that was cool because it was not just like a small community outside of Oxy. It was like huge, like hundreds of people like all around us, all of us marching. And it was cool to see like everybody that cared about this and all the different groups around LA that were like involved in this thing that we were also involved in. So those are probably my two favorite things.
Well, thank you very much. And an excellent question has come in about the student experience. That's kind of a slight pause on the club conversation. And so I want to answer that and then come back to a few more club and organization questions. But a student is asking just about coming to Oxy from somewhere else and like, literally, how do you do that? Like, where do you put your stuff and where does your stuff go over the summer? And how do you move in? And how do you get here from out of state? So maybe Bergen, why don't you answer that first?
Yeah. Okay, so in terms of like logistics, I every summer have gotten like a storage unit off campus. I believe that they do offer storage on campus, but most of my friends are also from out of state. And so we all just like chipped in together and got a storage unit. That was really easy. There are like a lot in the area, so it's not like super far away or anything. And when you split it with a bunch of people, it wasn't like crazy expensive or anything. I will say like move out is stressful, but I don't know if it's necessarily more stressful for people from out of state than in state. Like it's just like a crazy stressful time because it's the same time as finals also. And so everyone is stressed out and like you also have been living in this room for like a year. And so it's just stressful regardless to have to like move all of your stuff at the end of a year while also doing finals. So I don't know if that's more or less stressful for people from far away. The only thing that's the main differences are like one, having to get the storage unit, which is not that hard. And then two, if you have to like fly, like obviously I will say that's probably the hardest part is that like my friends that drove home, they didn't have to worry about like fitting their things in a 50-pound suitcase and making sure that it wasn't over 50 pounds and like that their carry-on wasn't bigger than like 22 inches or whatever it is. So like that's the most stressful part, is like figuring out the logistics of what I could fly with. But other than that, it's just a crappy time regardless.
That's true. I think we all share that. Everyone has had that experience. And also a good time to point out that like most of our students are from out of state, actually. We have 48 states at Oxy. Usually between 60 to 70% of the students are not from California. And even of our Californians, like half are from Northern California. So really, everyone's kind of going somewhere. And so it's a very shared experience. Luca, anything you would add from your move out advice?
I mean, at this point, I've got my driving buddy. Me and Sherwin hop on I-5, book it all the way up to the Bay every single winter break, and it's a blast. So we've got our routine down pat at this point, is what I'll say.
And I have to ask Karina, do you just end up storing stuff for your friends? Like, I feel like as a local student, there was always like, okay, yep, you can just keep that here with me. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. When COVID first hit, I had a lot of stuff that was not mine, and then I moved out, and I moved actually into this house.
Oh, I think we lost you, Karina. So I'm sure that'll come back around. And when it does, we'll keep going. But I feel like since I can see others, I think that's one of those like who's frozen moments, which is totally fine. So we'll come back to that. So let's get into another question just around being on campus, because we are back on campus. So speaking of COVID, last year, like Luca was saying, we were doing theater projects on Zoom. We were having even dance production on Zoom, Bergen. We can talk more about that, but why don't we talk first about the transition of getting to do it in person again? What has that been like? Do you feel like the clubs were like, did they still exist? Like, was it still possible to kind of pick up where you left off, or did you feel like you were starting over? Either of you want to start?
I can start. I'm still thinking, but I'll start. Hopefully it just comes as I talk. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if it felt like I was picking up where I left off or if I felt like I was starting over. Like somehow it feels like both to me. Like there have been moments where I've been back on campus where I'm like, oh, it feels like no time has passed, and I forget that I literally spent like a year and a half across the country. And then there are other times where I'm like, man, I missed a lot. Like I feel like it's been a long time since I've been here, and like so many things have changed. So I don't know. It feels like both at the same time. But in terms of whether or not clubs like were really functioning, that depended on the club. It depended on like if students wanted to continue. I know a lot of students like changed how they were involved in the things that they were doing while we were like virtual, which is valid. It was a stressful time. But I will say that like, I think that the school overall and the clubs that did continue were really like creative, and like basically the people that wanted to stay involved made it work, which was hard to do, but it was very impressive to like watch it happen. Like, which I guess is probably true just across the board with most things, because it was like unprecedented times for all of us. But it was just really cool to watch, like, you know, like even seeing like Dance Pro, like they really made that work. Like, I don't know how they did it, but they did. And that's true of a lot of clubs, is that if they wanted to keep going, and I know that for a lot of people, like, especially with Dance Pro, people are like, dance is the thing that like helps me when I'm stressed out, or, you know, for other people, it's other things, but like being involved for a lot of us is like the way that we de-stress and like feel good at the end of a stressful day. So for those of us that like wanted to continue doing that, I think we were good at like making sure that we could still do it in a new way.
Yep, absolutely. What would you add, Luca?
Yeah, I'd say just in terms of engagement over COVID. Oh, welcome back, Karina. There were definitely like some clubs, for example, like Frisbee, that just kind of dropped off the face of the earth for a year. Like, I mean, it's hard for me to play Frisbee.
You can't throw a Frisbee on Zoom. It's just not gonna go anywhere. Yeah.
Seattle, DC, and South Africa, it's not going to work. But other clubs, such as like the Economic Student Association, for example, were able to create a lot of spaces and really intentionally hold that community. So a lot of my community that came from outside of classes during COVID was from all of these organizations that were intentionally holding space for each other and trying to keep some semblance of the community. As we return to campus, I found like quite a few differences in how clubs are being set up, especially as now we went from sophomores who are kind of just learning what's going on to seniors who are leading everything, which has been a stark transition, missing 2 years of kind of that like generational passover of knowledge. and lost a lot of institutional knowledge that way. But it's been kind of exciting at the same time because right now it's like there are 2 years of people on campus who are new and don't know how things used to be. So there's very low friction for like making new traditions, like changing old traditions, or like just reinventing the way that campus works and everything like that. It feels like we have a lot of agency over the campus climate. And that has been like so exciting to try and like intentionally reinvent that and really just bring forward things that like I'm excited about doing and I'm excited about making long-standing norms at Oxy as well.
Yep, absolutely. And hopefully better norms, right? Like I think this is a community that is also very aware of when things aren't as good as they should be. And so how can we come together and always be constantly supporting each other? So Karina, we lost you when you were sharing with us about kind of helping out your friends with their moving and COVID. And then we transitioned to a question of like being involved in clubs during COVID and post-COVID. So why don't you maybe finish telling us about moving and then also tell us about your experience with clubs?
Yeah, definitely. So, okay, with moving, I definitely had a lot of my friends' stuff with me because they are like from Connecticut or Washington. So they didn't want to take it back with them, understandably. Even moving back home when I did live at home, it was stressful because I had so much stuff and I didn't have that weight limit. So I could just put everything in my car and throw it back and get it there. For COVID and like the involvement that I had during that time, Alpha actually became a very strong support system for me and just the kind of community that we wanted to get together. I also kind of created my own community, especially through the Black Lives Matter movement. I was able to raise over $1,000 for like supplies to bring to protest. And thank you. And so just that community in general of seeing people come together and that activism and actual activism and just instead of performative. So that was really cool to see too.
Absolutely. So a question has come in actually that maybe Karina and Luca, you can help answer just about like from someone who doesn't have any experience with Greek life, which makes sense because you don't really have a fraternity sorority culture in high school. And since it is so different at other schools. So they want to hear about the gender neutral organization, how that works. They want to know how you join these organizations and like maybe even what does it even do? Like what does a fraternity, what does a sorority even do? So maybe Luca, why don't you get us started and then Karina, you can chime in also.
Yeah, a couple things that I'll say about Greek life at Oxy. First of all, only about 20% of students on campus are involved in Greek life. It's not a huge margin. So it doesn't feel like it's something that you need to do in order to create a social climate or anything like that. Actually, intentionally, Oxy kind of distances itself from making it part of the social climate by saying you can't rush the first year you're on campus. So you have to, the first semester. So you have to spend like a full semester making friends in other places before going into Greek life. And I think that does a really, really good job of making sure that it's not toxic, of making sure that you really have these communities that you've built up outside of it as well. When you are in Greek life, fantastic community. I've loved it. I lived at the Zeta House the entire way through COVID. In terms of how gender neutral orgs work, it's the same as another Greek org on campus, except accepting of all gender identities, which means that it just becomes a queer space. So I live in a very, very queer space on campus. I'm straight, but I am one of two straights in our org of 12. But it's been really, really fun, and it's been really, really like great for me to explore. It provides lots of service opportunities. We do like beach cleanups. We do partnerships with like the LA LGBTQ association and stuff like that. We have a bunch of books sitting downstairs right now that are going to go to a prison book drive at some point soonish. We need to figure out logistics for that. But a lot of opportunities for engagement with our communities, a lot of opportunities for leadership, and also just like really, really, really strong communities and ways of like doing things in and around campus. Like all the people who I live with in my house we're a super, super small Greek org, but they're all my closest friends. And it's because I've been living with them for a year and a half through one hell of a time.
Yes, right. Through quite a year. Well, Karina, yeah, tell us about being involved in Alpha as far as like what do you actually do? And also what was the experience like during COVID, especially since that was so meaningful for you?
So Alpha, our philanthropy is Planned Parenthood, which I really, really love. And I think that's what drew me to Alpha. Planned Parenthood is just a very big part of women's lives in general and non-binary folks and men as well. So I love all the work that we do for them. We do like condom crawls. We help them put together different goodie bags and just kind of are advocates for Planned Parenthood. And so during the COVID time, pandemic time, there we go. we had little Zoom meetings and had like a little bingo night one time. And some of my friends, we did like a cocktail night, and you don't have to drink if you don't want to, and like a little cooking night, and just having different ways to interact with each other and still like be together without being together. So I really appreciated that. Yeah. And then they also are very supportive of everything we do. And like when Leg Up was taking off, some of my sisters were the people pushing out those Instagram posts or just supporting us the most. So yeah.
Well, and all of you are, and speaking of Leg Up, all of you are leaders. I mean, Karina, you started an organization. Bergen, you became the president of one in your first year and have continued to. Like you, Luca, you've been a captain. You've, all been leading in different places. How did you decide or agree to, whenever it happened, like take that extra role and participate at that level? Since certainly there's plenty of people involved in lots of things without having to be the leaders of that things, but that's something you all have in common. Anyone want to go first? Yeah, Karina.
So for Leg Up, that kind of came naturally to me. I really enjoy talking to other people and helping other people. I think that is my purpose on this earth, to help others and to make the world a better place, no matter how I do it. Especially with Leg Up, I really think it's going to be a domino effect. Once people see the work we're doing over here, it's going to affect different parts of the world. And so it came naturally for me, honestly, in that situation, because I had people who supported me and showed up, and having that support system is really helpful and very validating. So yeah.
Well, and it's already infectious, your passion, even here through Zoom. So I can see why you're a natural leader with the organization. And Bergen, you did explain a little bit of kind of raising your hand and becoming president, but you have decided to stay. You continue to lead that club. That certainly wasn't something you would have been forced to keep doing. So what's really driven you to stay in a leadership role?
Yeah, and also I think the whole raising my hand thing, just to go back to that, the reason I did it, like obviously I didn't have to like I didn't have to like volunteer myself for that either. I think the reason that I did it originally was to force myself to do things. I am like a very introverted person. And so if I don't like, really get up the energy to like go do things and like be with other people and like get involved, then I just don't. And so since it was like the very beginning of freshman year and I was trying to like try all these new things, and I was like, I've got all this time now. I'm not like doing a varsity sport. Like I'm going to do everything. Like I signed up, I think for like 20 different email lists for clubs. No, I'm not involved in all of them, but yes, I still get emails from all of them all the time. But it's fine. That's my own fault. But yeah, I was just really trying to like force myself to get involved because I knew I could do it and I knew that I would like it, but I knew I needed to like have that first push. And so I think it was helpful for me to like have that push and like literally just straight into the deep end. Like I had to like figure things out really fast. Which was helpful because then I had to do it. But I've actually really enjoyed being a part of it. And I'm doing it with one of my closest friends too. And a lot of the people in the club are also my closest friends. And so even like during COVID, when we would have like our Zoom meetings, we would usually like start out talking about administrative things. And then we'd be like, so what are you doing this weekend? Like, what, are you watching anything right now? Like, it was just kind of like a fun hangout moment too. So I think that was just helpful. And that like makes me want to keep doing these things and like keep being a leader because I just like what I'm doing and I like the people that are doing it with me. And so it just makes me want to like continue doing that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Luca, what about you?
I feel like for the clubs that I lead, it was kind of a little bit of a natural progression. Like ESA in particular, it was like, all right, who's gonna do it? And it was like, okay, fine, yeah, sure, I'll take. Yeah, okay. For Frisbee, it was a little bit more directive of like it's been kind of like the path that's set up since I like got on the team as a first year and everything like that, and it's been a little bit more linear. But the one that I think I had to push myself for was on my sophomore year. I was a sophomore class senator on ASOC Senate. And that was one that I really had to push myself kind of into a little bit more. It like student leadership from like an associated student body point of view isn't something that I ever touched in high school or anything like that. But I think it was really because it was really something that I did because I fell in love with so many of my communities at Oxy, like as soon as I got here. And and I really enjoy being a resource for other people. So as soon as that came around, that opportunity came up. I decided to run kind of a little bit on a whim, but also I was like, okay, cool, this will be fun. And through that, I really got to know a lot of administrators really well. I got to know a lot of club leaders and a lot of people who are super active on campus really well. And now I feel like my main role on campus, especially like in the slice ops, is anytime anybody comes in and has a question, I'm like, oh yeah, have you talked to this person? Have you talked to this person? Have you talked to this person? And I can just kind of, direct the traffic and send people around where they need to go. And I really love doing that. It's something that I really, really enjoy, is making connections and helping people like find new ways to connect with other people who are passionate about similar things as them. And that was something that I really, really got started from my time working on associate student body.
Awesome, thank you. Another question has come in about clubs and organizations that interact with animals or animal shelters. And I know at different times there have been different versions. Do any of you have examples of that or things you've participated in?
I think one of my favorites. Oh, Courtney.
Okay, Luca, then Karina.
One of my favorites is Tiger Paws. I think that they've died down a little bit this year. I don't think anybody's taken up the mantle yet this year. But I know they just reached out to us and they want to be revived. But this is something that they used to do, is where it was Stephanie Malter 2 years ago would literally just like send these emails out to like little animal shelters and stuff like that and bring dogs onto our library patio like every month. And you just walk in the library and go, oh wait, there are dogs here. And you'd stop and just pet them for like 15 minutes, 10-15 minutes, something like that. Also, there are just always dogs on the quad, literally constantly. We have an open campus, and there are a couple like consistent culprits, like our favorite campus dogs who walk by and stuff like that, who you get to know the owners, you get to know them, you're really like waiting. If you know that you're going to be walking across the quad around 1 or 2 p.m.ish, you got your eye out for the same one every single time as you're going across on your way to lunch or something like that too, which is also really nice.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Karina, what were you going to add?
I was just going to say, I don't know about very many clubs on campus, but there's the Pasadena Humane Society that is usually taking a bunch of volunteers. So you can work and volunteer through that. And then there's a bunch of different organizations. But to add on to Lucas' point, I got a puppy during the pandemic. So I have a little pandemic puppy. And Theo, he's very cute. And he gets me stopped in the quad all the time. I will try to be getting to one location. It takes me 30 minutes to get there, when normally it would take me 5. So Oxy is definitely a very dog-friendly campus. Random people have asked to watch my dog, and I don't know their names, but I'm like, sure. But yeah, it's a very dog-friendly, animal-friendly campus.
Absolutely. And while not the same as like volunteering at an animal shelter, I always love when they bring the puppies in for flu shots, or when they did the goat yoga. Like, so I also think that for all of us animal lovers, like there's certainly ways to interact. So even though you can't like bring your pet into your residence hall, you can definitely still support that community. We have time for just a couple more questions. So I'm going to try and quickly go through these ones that have come in. Luca, could you talk about the clubs that involve music, since you happen to be part of Glee Club, and maybe just kind of give a quick overview of ways students can be involved in different music things?
A lot of the ways that students can get involved in music things are kind of like these academic avenues that are done for credit, but also just kind of like that you can do for fun. Like I don't care about theory like at all. I'm still in a 2-unit music class essentially through Oxy's Glee Club. I've also been in college chorus, which is our lighter version of Glee Club as well, a one unit vocal class. I've also been in a vocal class where you just go up and every semester you sing 3 songs with Desiree. You go through them and you really get like critiqued, and all your peers are just kind of supporting you through it, but you really get to perform in front of an audience, solo work like 3 times a year, or 3 times a semester. Beyond that, we have 2 a cappella groups, or well, it's 1 a cappella group right now. It's either 1 or 2 depending on the interest in the semester.
Depending on who's here, and yep.
Yeah. But I was in that my first year too. But in terms of general music, we have a chamber orchestra, we have a jazz ensemble as well. And we have Mlk as well, which is our music students. I don't know exactly what their acronym.
No, the acronym. I don't know what it stands for exactly either. Yeah. But yeah, there's definitely
Music Student Coalition. That's what it is. Music Student Coalition. But they're recently starting up, and they're really an advocacy group for music majors or just like students interested in music on campus. They're running a lot of like setting up like a concert for student performers and stuff like that. But in addition, there are just like a lot of student performers and bands and stuff like that in and around campus that just kind of do their own thing. And you'll like go to an off-campus house or something like that, and you'll get there and be like, oh wait, okay, they're playing here? Sure. And just show up to an impromptu concert when you're going out places, stuff like that. And a lot of students are publishing their music. You can hear on KOXY pretty often, stuff like that as well. So there are a lot of students making music, especially because our music production program here is so big and is gaining so much traction that it'll just kind of show up and you won't be expecting it, and then it'll just be there.
Yep, absolutely. And then similarly, a question came in, Bergen, for you about the dance teams. And so dance production is just one of many dance clubs. And I know you're not in all of them, but if you wouldn't mind trying to like maybe quickly explain the different dance groups.
Yeah, I'll do my best. Hopefully I can hit on all of them. So Dansport is definitely the most popular. It's actually our biggest club on campus, I believe, unless that's changed. I can't imagine it changing. So yeah, that's by far our biggest club. So also by far the most popular for dance. We've also got Pulse, which is really fun. I like to do that too sometimes. That's even less intense than Dansport. It's like even less of a commitment. You literally can go once all year if you want. It's literally just once a week they do basically like it's also student choreographers, and they'll teach you like a 1 minute maybe routine, and you learn it in one night and then that's it. Like you never perform it or anything. I mean, you perform it for each other that night and that's it. So it's really fun. It's like a fun way just to like kind of dance for fun and do it like really casually, or just like get some exercise on like a Wednesday night or whatever. So I like to do that sometimes. We do also have a dance team, which I don't believe is competitive, but they do perform at things like, that's more of like a dance team, like the one that I was involved in with high school is more like they perform at games and do that kind of stuff, but they also like choreograph their own. I would assume that that one is more of a time commitment than Dance Pro, just like trying to like organize them. So it's like Pulse and then Dance Pro and then dance team, I would say. And then the last thing I'll mention is that there are also dance classes. I can't believe I forgot the word class for a sec. That's embarrassing. There are also dance classes, which are usually like 1 or 2 units. And those are really fun. Also, we have like a really cool program. So you can take like an intro ballet class. You can take like a more advanced ballet class. You can take classes on choreography, all kinds of stuff. And that's a cool way to like, again, stay involved in dance. And it's a time commitment in that it's like a class, but there's no like, you know, big performance or anything beyond like what you're doing in the class. So that's a cool way to, and it also, since it's 1 or 2 units, it's not going to like overtake too much of what you're doing in your other classes. Like you can very easily have like a full class schedule and then also do like a ballet class. So that's a fun way to do that too.
And then I think that there's also Azúcar, the salsa dance club.
And I think that might be a folk dance club.
And yep, and the Folk and Historical Dance Society. So I also love that we have just the opportunity to learn about different cultures through dance, which I think is really important. And then Karina, the other question that came in that I don't think is possible to answer, but just to try and give a synopsis of ways to volunteer at Oxy, because there's so many. So I don't know if you want to try to like highlight a couple, I don't know, but I'm going to let you try that.
Yeah, I can try. So for Leg Up, it's very easy. Just when we post something on the Instagram, we usually have a Google form, or you can DM us and boom, bam, you're there volunteering. Another way, I think, is just knowing the right people and being involved in the right clubs. I know that Habitat for Humanity has gone and built houses before, and all you have to do is just sign up. We also have a thing called Mlk Day of Service and the Cesar Chavez Day of Service. I think that's what it's called. So that's another amazing way to get involved with the community, and it's probably my favorite event that Oxy has throws, because you get to directly go out and serve your community and help different types of people. And yeah, I really love that event.
Staff and faculty, we get to join that too. So I agree, Karina, it's always a great day and we get to really be together, and it's so nice to be part of some direct service and really like do something that makes a difference that day, which is lovely. And then awesome ways to stay involved in longer term projects as well. So deep breath. I feel like we've covered a lot of ground. I want to say thank you to my incredible panelists. I promise these like are real Oxy students. We don't make them up. They are so incredible and just awesome and impressive that I know you think that not everyone could be this wonderful, but it's true. This is a great campus and an amazing community, and I'm really proud of them, and I'm really proud to be part of Oxy, and I appreciate all of you for joining us tonight. So we're going to end the session now, but as I mentioned, we'll send you out a recording for it. This is not the only way you can stay in touch with us, so please don't hesitate to reach out, and hopefully we will see you all or hear from you all at some point in the future. But thank you all so very much for being here.